Catherine Cook. I have epilepsy.
My name is Melissa. I am 20 years old and I am diagnosed with epilepsy.
I remember when I went to the doctor, I was really confused. I was like, what is epilepsy? Because he told me that everyone has a seizure at least once in their life. But then when we found out that I was having more, it was so scary and it didn't make any sense to me. And I remember him giving me a pamphlet and it said like all about epilepsy, and I read all about the different types of seizures you can have, like the auras and all of that. And I was like,
weird, and people would look at me differently than before. And my questions were like, why me? And I really blamed myself for having epilepsy.
Because I didn't know, it's still very hard for me to say the word seizure and epilepsy because everyone thinks it's such a negative, like bad thing. But
really talking to my mom, because she was the one that was really there for me through it all. And I just talked to her and told her how I felt.
Right after I was diagnosed, I started writing in a journal to like keep everything down and to, have these memories and how I was feeling and to kind of let it out, because at that time I really didn't have anyone to talk to about this. And of course I have my family, but they can only understand so much. They saw my seizures, but they didn't know how I felt and what I was going through.
Well, I didn't tell anybody when I was first diagnosed. I was just gone for a week from junior high, and people were like, where were you? And I was just at home, didn't want to come to school.
I would say the question that was kind of the same throughout was like, what can you do and what can't you do? Can we do this? Can we do that? What happens? What do I do when you do have a seizure?
I went home that day and cried because it's like people started treating me differently, and that's exactly what I didn't want.
It was a little bit harder for me to kind of understand what was going on with me while also trying to be like normal and cool and keep up with band. And it was such a big help because
I got a group of friends, and in that group of friends was Catherine.
I learned that I actually had a fellow friend who also had epilepsy with me, Melissa. And so we became friends and we talked about it a whole bunch and we went through it really together, and it was just great to have someone that I knew just standing there with me.
So when me and Catherine first met, it was because we both played the flute, and honestly I didn't really talk to her at first. It was more like, okay, she's friends with my old best friend, so I don't like her. And then so one time I was
We just knew each other.
Yeah, we just knew each other, but not we knew about each other, but not knew each other, I guess. And then I was at home and I got a message on Facebook, and it was like, again, I didn't want anyone to know that I have epilepsy. So when she messaged me, she was asking me how I was going through it, and she told me that she was diagnosed with it, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this information? Because I'm really trying to learn how to, I guess, handle my epilepsy. So
this is gonna sound really weird, but I would say my connecting moment for us was pretty late into our friendship. It was actually a couple years ago. We went to a meeting at Cook's Children.
Yeah.
We went and ate lunch, I guess, after at Chipotle, and then we went to a park near my house and we sat down and we talked for hours until it was dark, and we were just talking about everything, and that was I think the most vulnerable we were with each other and just open, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, because I was like, wow, I've known her for these years, but I never really talked to her about anything besides epilepsy, really.
My advice for people who get the same diagnosis would be, honestly, as I mentioned before, to write it down. I love having my thoughts from when it originally happened to, I read back now almost 4 or 5 years later about how much has changed and how much I've overcome, and it's great to see all those strides and to see how I was feeling and how I feel now. It just really feels like an accomplishment and something that I'm getting over in time. I find that talking about it really helps, because in the beginning I didn't have any groups or any friends until I found Melissa and we found a group, and that also was something to getting to know other people who know more about it and just talking about it.
My advice to people that are going through the same thing as I am or any other medical issue is to definitely have somebody that you can talk to about it.
As a teacher, I've had many students with different kinds of ailments and conditions, but it had rarely been that I'd had a student with epilepsy. These wonderful students here with me were 2 at the same time, so that was interesting. I had to make sure I was ready for anything that could happen. Luckily, the school trains us in what to do with any kid that has any kind of seizure, so I felt a little bit prepared, but it always made me feel like I have to keep an eye on these 2. Luckily, they were in the front row of class all the time, so they were easy to take care of. But it's something I always had to think about, you know, what do I do if this happens, and am I prepared to do that?